Are Olympic athletes rich? Do Olympic swimmers pee in the pool? How do you handle nerves on race day? Do you wear your medals around the house? Let's bust some myths and answer what it's really like to be an Olympic champion. Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Matt Richards. I am a two-time Olympic champion in the sport of swimming. Today I'm going to be answering some questions from you guys about what is it really like when you stand on top of the block at the highest level of competition in sport and become an Olympic champion. So let's get cracking. Somebody's asked, do you train every single day? Almost. I train every day apart from a Sunday. And that's for us as swimmers, that's quite common. But yeah, so I will train Monday through to Saturday, 6 days a week, pretty much 50 weeks of the year. It's very intense. That will consist of up to 10 swimming sessions per week, which could be 2.5 hours long, and up to 5 gym sessions a week. Plus other bits like massage, soft tissue, injury prevention, all of that stuff. So it's pretty intense. That's a lot of hours worth of work. Swimming being the sport it is, where it's non-weight bearing, means that we can do quite a lot of training without too much risk of injury. We train a lot. Next question, what's harder, training or racing? That's a very good question. I think that would depend. Every person you ask may give you a different answer. Personally, I've always thought that training is 80% physical and 20% mental. And I think that when you come to racing, it's the complete opposite way around. So it's 80% mental and 20% physical. Really depends on what you find harder. So here we've been asked, how much do you actually rest? Sleep and recovery are extremely important when you're in professional sport, because if you don't do that, your body can't adapt to the work it's done and can't prepare for the work it's about to do. So that's extremely vital to what we do. I try every night and get a minimum of 8 hours time asleep. So for those of you out there that maybe use a Whoop or an Oura Ring or any other sort of sleep tracking, that's time asleep, not time in bed. So I always try and be over 8 hours worth of that. And I find, for me personally, that recovers me really nicely for the next day ahead. To the next question of, can you still eat junk food? Answer to that is yeah, absolutely, in moderation. So I'm not gonna go and eat junk food every week. It's not something that I would be able to do. However, I will have junk food here and there in moderation in my diet. You may have noticed today I am wearing the AP Race t-shirt. If you don't know, I'm an investor into the AP Race brand, helping kids all around the world get into swimming, enjoy being in swimming and stay in swimming. We've got a load more gear at apraceclo.com, which I have linked down in the description, and you can use code MATT, M-A-T-T, all caps, to get 20% off your next order, site-wide. So go and check it out, see what you think, and you can wear the same gear as me. So the next section here we're gonna do is more about what I would class as money and fame. First one we have here, are Olympic athletes rich? Now, that's an interesting question because I don't know how you quantify what would you consider as rich, but what I would say is there can be very good money to be earned in Olympic sport, but it's very different to professional sports like football, or if you're in the USA, maybe NBA, basketball, those sort of things. It's very different. So the money that we as Olympians earn, generally speaking, will come from sponsorship deals and from winnings from competitions, so bonuses. We don't get paid all that much in the way of a salary. At least in the UK, our funding system works. So as soon as you become what UK sport would consider as a potential success at the next Olympic Games, you will be given a band of funding for the year, basically like a salary, somewhere between the range of £6,000 and £28,000. So the absolute most you can earn as an athlete in Britain is £28,000 a year. And that would be if you've won individual, world or Olympic medals 2 years in a row. So you've got to do quite a lot to get to that point. So in that sense, you know, you'd probably think that that's not as much money as you might think it would be, but you get the opportunity to top that up with prize money and with sponsorship deals and one-off engagements and things like that. So there can be very good money to be made, but it's not as simple as signing a big contract with a club and then that money comes in every week. It's very different for Olympic athletes. So next question, do you get paid for winning a gold medal? At World Championships, yes, we do get paid. World Aquatics for swimming, they pay a bonus to various different people based on how well you perform in the race. So if you win the World Championships, you win $20,000. Pretty good money. However, the Olympics doesn't pay any bonuses. So if you win an Olympic gold medal, you don't get any bonus for that. Now, some countries will pay their athletes money on top of their salary as a reward for doing really well. I know that the USA do that. I know that some other countries do that. Here in the UK, there is no extra payment for winning Olympic medals. So for us in the UK, no, you don't get paid to win gold, but you do get to come home with Olympic gold medals. So Still pretty cool. Then the final question within this section is, do sponsors pay a lot? Now, again, this is a tough question to answer because it depends on what you would class as a lot, right? So I can't tell you how much I get paid by my sponsors. I wouldn't be allowed to. I'd be in trouble for that. But you can make good money from sponsorship deals. But the most important thing for sponsors is that they get something out of working with you. It's not all about take. You have to give something back. And that's how a really good partnership is born. Next section is going to be about mindset and pressure. This is something that I find really interesting and love talking about. First question is the pressure at an Olympic Games insane? Yeah, it is. Generally speaking, I have always been a firm believer that pressure is a privilege. If you feel like there's loads of pressure on you, it means you've probably done something pretty well beforehand for people to have that pressure on you, right? So it's a great experience to have, but yeah, absolutely. When you stand behind the blocks at an Olympic Games, knowing that there's millions of people watching it on the TV, tens of thousands of people in the stand, all watching you race, there's definitely some pressure. The last thing you want is to go in early or for your trunks to rip and something to go horribly wrong. That's not what you want to happen. But yeah, absolutely, there's real pressure at those competitions. Following on from that, the next question is, how do you handle nerves on race day? Now, everybody is different with this, and you have to find out what works for you. However, I've always been a firm believer that everybody that you're racing against is just as nervous as you are, if not more. Everybody there is going to be nervous. Some people may look more nervous than others, but everybody that's standing behind the blocks to race or compete in any sport, they're nervous. They're going to be nervous to race. And so it's about how do you manage that. For me, I look at it as the nerves is my body's way of telling me that we're ready to go, we're ready to race. And I love that feeling now because I've reframed how I look at it in my mind. I don't look at it as, oh, I'm nervous, I'm scared. I look at it as, oh, I'm nervous, that means it's showtime. Next question, do you ever feel like giving up? Has there been moments in my career where I've thought, is it time for me to hang it up? Yeah, absolutely. But have I ever seriously considered giving up? No, not just yet. And touch wood, hopefully it stays that way. But I love what I do. Next question is, what goes through my head when I'm on the blocks? So for those of you that aren't swimming fans, the blocks is what we dive in off when we're about to start racing. So when I'm in that moment, all I'm thinking about is something that one of my very first coaches, Malcolm, told me when I was much younger. And he said, by the time you get to behind the blocks, the only thing that you should be worrying about is just how good do you look in your trunks, right? And it sounds funny, it sounds silly, but it's so true. Because by the time you get to that moment, all the work's done. All the hard bits, they're finished. You can't change the work you've done. You can't change your preparation at that point. All you can do is be in the moment and race the race. And that's what I try and think about, is when I'm behind the blocks, is I just remember those kind words of my coach back in the day when I was much younger and I was nervous for a race, and he told me all you need to worry about is just how good do you look behind the blocks. That's all you need to worry about, and the rest will take care of itself. And so far so good. Do people recognize you everywhere you go? No, absolutely not. Not here in the UK anyway. At swimming competitions, yeah, maybe sometimes people will recognize who I am. Immediately after the Olympics, where there's been loads and loads of coverage and everybody's been watching the TV and watching the Olympic Games, it happens quite regularly where you might have people in the street or in the supermarket bump into you and recognize who you are, which is pretty cool. But no, it's not something where every day I walk out in the street and people recognize who I am. It's quite rare that people would recognize me just on a day-to-day trip away from the Olympics, after the Olympics. So that's quite a nice thing, because I know there are a lot of athletes out there in other sports that are so famous that they can't even go out to get a coffee. And for me personally, I love coffee, so that would frustrate me a little bit. And then the last section I've got for you today is just a few funny ones that I thought I wanted to throw in there because they made me chuckle when I read them. So the first of those, do Olympic swimmers pee in the pool? Yeah, we do. Absolutely we do. All of us do. Anyone that tells you they don't, they're lying, because our coaches at this level, they will not let you get out of the pool in the middle of the session to go to the toilet. So you have to make sure you go to the toilet beforehand, and because we're staying so hydrated and we're swallowing pool water by accident here, there and everywhere, so you're constantly really hydrated when you're in the water, yeah, you've got to pee in the pool every now and again. But thankfully, that's what we have chlorine for, because it kills any bacteria, and so you'd never know it's there. But yeah, unfortunately, that is a trick of the trade. Next question really made me chuckle. Do you wear your medals around the house? No, I don't. That's not something I do. I have them on display, which is lovely to be able to do, but no, I don't wear my medals around the house. I think They're quite heavy, so it would, more than anything, it might just hurt your neck. But yeah, I just leave them on the shelf here, and it's a reminder of why I get up every morning to go to the pool. Then the final question I have for you today is, could I beat the average person at a swimming race with my arms tied behind my back? Now, in answer to your question, the average person, so I'm not talking the average swimmer, the average person, yeah, I could probably beat them without using my arms. There are definitely going to be abnormalities to that rule, but I think 9 times out of 10, if you chuck me in against just an average person off the street, I'd probably be able to beat them in a swimming race without using my arms. So ladies and gents, that is all I have got for you today. Let me know in the comments down below if there's any other questions that you have for me. I'm going to start responding to them, and if there's enough questions, I might even do a part 2 to this video. So don't forget to drop a subscribe and a like if you want to see more of what life as an Olympic champion swimmer is really like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.